The morning fog hung thick over the cobblestone streets of London as Special Agent Marcus Rivera stepped out of the black sedan and adjusted his suit jacket. The American embassy loomed before him, its imposing facade a stark reminder that he was far from home. Rivera had been stationed in London for 18 months, but the weight of representing his country on foreign soil never quite left his shoulders. Inside the embassy, tension crackled through the air like electricity before a storm. Ambassador Catherine Mills paced behind her mahogany desk, her usually composed demeanor showing cracks of strain. The classified documents spread across her desk told a story that made Rivera's jaw clench with barely contained anger. "Agent Rivera," the ambassador began, her voice tight with controlled fury, "we have a situation that demands immediate action. Our intelligence sources have uncovered evidence of a massive arms trafficking operation. The trail leads directly to someone we never suspected." Rivera leaned forward, studying the photographs and intercepted communications laid out before him. His eyes widened as he recognized the face in the surveillance photos. Lord Geoffrey Ashworth, a member of the British Parliament and trusted advisor to the royal family, smiled back at him from behind wire-rimmed glasses. The same man who had attended state dinners, who had shaken hands with presidents and prime ministers, was allegedly orchestrating the sale of military-grade weapons to terrorist organizations across 3 continents. "The evidence is solid," Ambassador Mills continued, sliding a thick file across the desk. "Bank transfers, encrypted communications, shipping manifests. Lord Ashworth has been using his political connections and diplomatic immunity as cover for his operations. Weapons meant for legitimate military contracts have been diverted to groups in Somalia, Afghanistan, and Syria." Rivera felt his stomach turn as he read through the intelligence reports. Children's hospitals bombed with American-made explosives. UN peacekeepers killed by weapons that should have been protecting them. The human cost of Ashworth's greed was written in blood across multiple continents. "What's our move?" Rivera asked, though he already suspected the answer would complicate his life considerably. "Lord Ashworth is attending a private reception at Buckingham Palace tonight. It's a charity gala for wounded veterans, which makes his presence there particularly disgusting given what we know. He'll be accompanied by minimal security, and the palace's standard protocols will be in place." Rivera's eyes narrowed. "You want me to arrest him at Buckingham Palace during a royal function?" "The British authorities have been compromised. We have reason to believe Ashworth has allies within their intelligence services. If we alert them, he'll disappear, and those weapons will continue flowing to terrorists. This has to be clean, quiet, and immediate." The weight of the mission settled on Rivera's shoulders like a lead blanket. He understood the implications. One wrong move, one moment of hesitation, and an international incident would erupt that could damage American-British relations for decades. But the alternative was allowing a monster to continue feeding weapons to the world's most dangerous people. As evening approached, Rivera found himself standing in the shadow of Buckingham Palace, watching elegantly dressed guests arrive for the charity gala. His earpiece crackled with updates from his surveillance team positioned around the perimeter. Lord Ashworth had arrived 20 minutes earlier, stepping out of a Rolls-Royce with the confidence of a man who believed himself untouchable. Rivera's hand instinctively moved to check the Glock 19 concealed beneath his dinner jacket. The weapon felt heavier than usual, loaded with the weight of justice and international consequences. He had attended dozens of high-profile arrests, but none in the heart of the British monarchy's seat of power. The palace's ornate gates stood before him, guarded by soldiers in their iconic red uniforms and bearskin hats. These weren't ceremonial guards playing dress-up for tourists. These were elite soldiers, trained killers who had earned their positions through years of service and unwavering loyalty to the crown. Rivera knew that beneath their traditional uniforms lay modern body armor, communication devices, and weapons that could end his life in seconds if they perceived him as a threat. As Rivera approached the palace entrance, his identification already prepared, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into a trap. The intelligence seemed almost too convenient, the evidence too perfectly presented. But the faces of the victims in the classified photos haunted him, children caught in explosions, families torn apart by violence funded through Ashworth's network. The royal guards at the gate examined his credentials with professional thoroughness. Their eyes, visible beneath the shadow of their ceremonial hats, held the cold calculation of men who had seen combat. Rivera maintained his composure, knowing that any sign of nervousness could trigger questions he wasn't prepared to answer. Tonight, justice would be served in the most unlikely of places, but Rivera couldn't escape the growing certainty that nothing about this mission would go according to plan. The palace's grand ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the gentle murmur of polite conversation. Rivera moved through the crowd like a predator among sheep, his trained eyes scanning for Lord Ashworth while maintaining the appearance of a diplomatic guest, enjoying champagne and small talk. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was hunting an arms dealer at a charity gala for wounded veterans. He spotted Ashworth near the orchestra, engaged in animated conversation with a group of military officials. The man looked completely at ease, laughing at jokes and sipping expensive wine, as if he hadn't orchestrated the deaths of countless innocent people. Rivera's hand twitched toward his concealed weapon, but discipline held him back. Timing would be everything. Rivera's earpiece buzzed with a coded message from his surveillance team. Ashworth's security detail had been identified, 2 men in conservative suits, positioned at opposite ends of the ballroom. More concerning was the intelligence update that suggested Ashworth might be planning to leave early. The window of opportunity was closing faster than anticipated. Moving with practiced casualness, Rivera positioned himself near the ballroom's eastern exit, the route Ashworth would most likely take to reach his waiting car. The plan was simple in theory, but complex in execution. Wait for Ashworth to excuse himself, follow him to a private area away from the main crowd, make the arrest quickly and quietly, then extract before palace security could react. But as Rivera watched, something unexpected happened. Lord Ashworth suddenly broke away from his group and headed not toward the exit, but deeper into the palace, toward areas clearly marked as restricted. Rivera's instincts screamed danger. This wasn't the behavior of a man planning to leave early. This was the behavior of a man with a backup plan. Rivera followed at a distance, his heart rate climbing as they moved through increasingly narrow corridors lined with priceless artwork and centuries of royal history. The sounds of the gala faded behind them, replaced by an oppressive silence that made every footstep echo like gunshots. Ashworth paused at an ornate door marked with royal insignia, then produced a keycard from his jacket pocket. The implications hit Rivera like a physical blow. Ashworth had access to secure areas of the palace. This wasn't just about arms trafficking. This was about something much more dangerous. As Ashworth swiped the keycard and pushed open the door, Rivera made his decision. He couldn't allow whatever was behind that door to remain hidden. Justice demanded action, even if it meant violating protocol and international law. "Lord Jeffrey Ashworth," Rivera called out, his voice carrying the authority of American law enforcement. "Federal Bureau of Investigation. You're under arrest." Ashworth spun around, his face cycling through surprise, fear, and finally settling on cold calculation. "Agent Rivera, isn't it? You're rather far from your jurisdiction, aren't you?" "Terrorism and arms trafficking are universal crimes," Rivera replied, his hand now openly resting on his holstered weapon. "Turn around and place your hands behind your back." Instead of complying, Ashworth smiled with the confidence of a man holding a royal flush. "You have no idea what you've stumbled into, Agent. This goes far beyond anything you could possibly understand. Try me." Ashworth gestured toward the open door behind him. "Do you want to know what's really in there? What your government has been so desperate to keep hidden?" It's not just about weapons, Agent Rivera. It's about agreements made in shadows, promises that keep the balance of power intact. Rivera's mind raced. Was Ashworth suggesting American complicity in his operations? Was this arrest actually designed to silence him rather than bring him to justice? The possibility that he was being used as an unwitting pawn in a larger game made his blood run cold. "Hands behind your back now," Rivera repeated, drawing his weapon and pointing it at Ashworth's chest. The moment Rivera's Glock cleared its holster, the palace's ancient stones seemed to come alive with danger. Footsteps echoed from multiple directions as palace security responded to the threat. But these weren't the measured steps of guards investigating a disturbance. These were the rapid, coordinated movements of a tactical response team. A royal guard appeared at the end of the corridor, his ceremonial uniform replaced with modern tactical gear. The soldier's weapon was trained on Rivera with deadly precision, and his voice carried the authority of the crown when he spoke. "Armed individual in the East Wing, drop your weapon immediately." Rivera found himself in an impossible position. His weapon remained pointed at Ashworth, but he was now in the crosshairs of one of Britain's most elite soldiers. The tension in the corridor was suffocating. 3 men with weapons drawn, each representing different loyalties and conflicting truths. "I'm a federal agent conducting a lawful arrest," Rivera shouted, trying to project authority while his heart hammered against his ribs. "You're an armed American on British soil threatening a member of Parliament," the Royal Guard replied. "Lower your weapon or face the consequences." Ashworth's laughter cut through the standoff like a blade. "Agent Rivera, you've just learned the most important lesson in international relations. Sovereignty matters more than justice." More guards appeared, their tactical lights creating a deadly constellation of red dots across Rivera's chest and back. He was surrounded, outgunned, and operating in hostile territory. But the evidence against Ashworth burned in his mind like a fire that couldn't be extinguished. In that moment of crystalline clarity, Rivera understood that he had 3 choices. He could surrender, allowing a mass murderer to escape justice. He could attempt to complete his arrest and likely die in the process. Or he could trust that the truth, once revealed, would be powerful enough to cut through political complications and international protocol. The decision would define not just his career, but the lives of countless future victims. Time stretched like molten glass as Rivera stood frozen in the deadly crossfire. The red laser dots dancing across his chest felt like the eyes of death itself, but his weapon remained trained on Lord Ashworth. In his peripheral vision, he could see more royal guards positioning themselves at strategic points throughout the corridor, their movements precise and coordinated. "Last warning, Agent Rivera," the lead guard's voice carried the weight of finality. "Lower your weapon." Instead of complying, Rivera made a calculated gamble that would either save thousands of lives or end his own. "Lord Ashworth, tell them about the shipping containers in Southampton. Tell them about the modified cargo manifests. Tell them about the children who died when your weapons reached Somalia." Ashworth's confident mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and desperate underneath. "You're making a terrible mistake, Agent. Forces far beyond your understanding are at work here." "The only mistake," Rivera replied, his voice steady despite the chaos, "was trusting that diplomatic immunity could protect a mass murderer." The standoff might have continued indefinitely, but the sound of approaching helicopters changed everything. Through the palace windows, searchlights blazed to life, and the distant thunder of rotor blades grew louder. Rivera's earpiece crackled with urgent communications as his backup team coordinated with British authorities who had finally been brought into the loop. The lead Royal Guard's expression shifted as he received his own communication through an encrypted channel. His weapon remained trained on Rivera, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "Command," requesting immediate clarification on the American status. What happened next would be debated in classified briefing rooms for years to come. Ambassador Mills had made a decision that would either end her career or secure her place in diplomatic history. She had contacted the British Prime Minister directly, presenting the evidence against Ashworth and demanding immediate cooperation in his arrest. The palace guard's radio crackled with new orders, and Rivera watched the soldier's face change as he processed the information. "Agent Rivera, you are ordered to maintain your position. Lord Ashworth, you are to surrender immediately to American custody." Ashworth's face went ashen as the reality of his situation crashed down upon him. The protective web he had woven through years of political connections was unraveling in real time. "This is impossible. I have guarantees. I have protection." "Your protection," Rivera said, finally allowing himself to breathe, "just ran out." But Ashworth wasn't finished. With the desperate cunning of a cornered animal, he lunged for the secure door behind him, attempting to access whatever secrets lay beyond. Rivera reacted instantly, tackling the older man to the marble floor as royal guards converged on their position. The struggle was brief, but vicious. Ashworth fought with the strength of a man facing life in prison, while Rivera battled to prevent the destruction of evidence that could implicate others in the trafficking network. As they grappled, documents spilled from Ashworth's jacket, scattering across the ancient stones like fallen leaves. One document in particular caught the lead royal guard's attention. As he examined the papers, his expression grew increasingly grim. The evidence didn't just implicate Ashworth. It revealed a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of multiple governments, including Britain's own intelligence services. "Bloody hell," the guard muttered, and Rivera knew that the scope of this operation was far larger than anyone had imagined. Within minutes, the corridor filled with a mixture of American FBI agents, British intelligence officers, and palace security personnel. The charity gala continued in blissful ignorance just a few hundred meters away, while one of the century's most significant arrests unfolded in the shadows of royal history. As Rivera secured the handcuffs around Ashworth's wrists, the arms dealer made one final attempt to maintain his defiance. "You think this ends with me? You have no idea how deep this goes. The weapons will continue flowing. The money will continue changing hands. You've caught one small fish in an ocean of sharks." Rivera looked into Ashworth's eyes and saw not just defeat, but genuine terror. The man wasn't afraid of prison. He was afraid of the people he had betrayed by allowing himself to be captured. "Maybe," Rivera replied, "but every ocean starts drying up one fish at a time." The extraction from Buckingham Palace became a masterpiece of diplomatic coordination. Media outlets reported only that a minor security incident had occurred during the charity gala, with Lord Ashworth suffering a medical emergency that required immediate hospitalization. The truth would remain classified for decades, if it ever emerged at all. As Rivera's plane lifted off from Heathrow Airport 6 hours later, Ashworth sat in federal custody, surrounded by evidence that would keep prosecutors busy for years. The arms trafficking network had been dealt a devastating blow, but Rivera knew the fight was far from over. Back in London, the royal guards who had participated in the arrest returned to their ceremonial duties, their faces betraying nothing of the night's events. Tourists continued to snap photos and marvel at their discipline, never knowing that these same soldiers had helped prevent weapons from reaching terrorist organizations around the globe. The official report would record the operation as a complete success, but Rivera understood that justice was rarely that clean. In the shadows cast by international politics and diplomatic immunity, evil often wore expensive suits and attended charity galas. Sometimes, stopping it required pointing a gun at someone in the heart of a royal palace and hoping that truth would prove stronger than protocol. 3 months later, Rivera received a handwritten note delivered through diplomatic channels. It bore the royal seal, and contained only 7 words. "Well done, Agent. The Crown remembers." It was unsigned, but Rivera understood that some acknowledgments transcend official records and political boundaries. The weapons shipments to Somalia stopped, the children's hospital bombings ceased, and somewhere in a federal prison, Lord Jeffrey Ashworth learned that diplomatic immunity has limits, and justice has a longer reach than any political connection.